Every legend in Hollywood has a secret. But what if those secrets were caught on film, stashed in vaults, and nearly erased from history? Imagine lost reels hiding moments so raw, so scandalous, they could shatter the carefully built myths of Tinseltown's brightest stars. What would it mean if the footage ever got out? Would it rewrite everything we thought we knew? Stick around, because what's been hidden away in celluloid shadows just might be more explosive than any headline you've ever read. The missing Marilyn Monroe psych ward reel. Forget the platinum curls, the breathless voice, the dazzling smiles. Imagine instead a young Marilyn Monroe locked behind the icy doors of the Payne Whitney Psychiatric Clinic in 1954, at the breaking point. Rumors swirl in Hollywood's underbelly about a lost reel, shot by an ambitious hospital staffer with access to a 16mm camera, chronicling Monroe's days inside. The restless pacing, the whispered pleas for release, the raw, unscripted pain of a woman cornered by fame. In those days, the walls between studio and real life were paper thin. Monroe had just divorced Joe DiMaggio and was on the verge of a nervous collapse. According to longtime staffers, someone saw a golden opportunity and secretly filmed hours of candid footage. Monroe sobbing in her room, ranting about betrayal, even confronting orderlies. Some say the tape was meant as a medical record. Others claim it was hush-hush blackmail, destined for a private buyer if Monroe ever stepped out of line. Studio executives allegedly got wind of it and moved fast, buying up any hint of the footage, threatening lawsuits, and making sure it never surfaced in the press. But legends persist. What if that reel still exists, hidden in a forgotten archive, or gathering dust in a box of hospital records? If it ever saw the light of day, Marilyn Monroe would no longer be a dazzling enigma. She'd be revealed in all her pain, stripping away the Hollywood varnish and exposing the cost of turning a person into an icon. The Monroe myth would never be the same. Clark Gable's divorce court outtakes. Clark Gable, the silver screen's smoothest operator, the ultimate man's man, a king in custom suits. But off-screen, life wasn't always so perfectly staged. In 1935, as Gable's marriage to Rhea Langham imploded in a tabloid tornado, Hollywood gossips whispered about the lost divorce court outtakes, raw newsreel footage that never made it to public view. Picture it: Gable not as the debonair Rhett Butler, but red-faced, hurling accusations across a smoky courtroom, barely keeping it together as lawyers circled like vultures. In an era when studios micromanaged every aspect of a star's image, the threat was real. If the world saw the king of Hollywood unraveling, MGM's golden goose might never recover. The legend goes that a camera crew, hoping for courtroom fireworks, captured every heated word and venomous glare. When the reels arrived at the newsreel office, the footage was reportedly so damaging that MGM's top brass staged a midnight buyout, sweeping up every copy before the morning edition could hit the presses. What happened to those reels? Some say they were quietly burned in the studio furnace. Others claim an ambitious executive kept a copy for leverage, insurance against Gable ever stepping out of line. To this day, collectors hunt for fragments, a misplaced reel, a mislabeled tin, hoping to witness the day the king fell from his throne. If these outtakes ever emerged, Gable's legend would be recast in a much harsher light. The mask would drop, and for a moment, the biggest man in Hollywood would be just that: a man, messy, flawed, and impossibly human. Joan Crawford's secret screen tests. Before the icy glares, before the Oscars, before the adopted children spilled their stories, Joan Crawford was just another unknown, desperate for a shot at stardom, clawing for attention at the bottom of MGM's casting ladder. In 1925, while studios experimented with personality reels to separate future stars from the also-rans, a very different Crawford reportedly appeared on film. Not the polished, controlled queen of later years, but a young woman at the mercy of the camera, nervous, awkward, even tearful after being rejected by casting directors. The whispers inside the lot are as sharp as a slap. Multiple studio old-timers swore that at least 3 reels existed, Crawford flubbing her lines, pleading for a second take, breaking down in tears as the room emptied out. Some say Louis B. Mayer himself ordered the footage shelved and eventually destroyed, fearing it would derail her ascension and tarnish MGM's reputation for discovering perfect talent. Others believe at least one print was hidden away, Insurance against the day when Crawford got too powerful or troublesome for her bosses. What's at stake if those reels are ever found? Everything. For decades, Crawford's legend was built on grit, resilience, and ironclad will. Imagine if the world saw the humiliation, the messiness, the fear before the fame, the very moments Crawford spent a lifetime erasing. It would rewrite the origin story, turning Hollywood's toughest dame into just another casualty of studio cruelty. And in a way, it might finally set her free. The disastrous Brando screen test for Gone with the Wind. Every Brando myth starts with that smoldering confidence and restless genius, but not every screen test was a slam dunk. Hollywood insiders have long whispered about a reel so mortifying that even Brando himself wanted it incinerated. The day he bumbled through a disastrous screen test for Gone with the Wind, auditioning for Rhett Butler in 1938. Here's the setup. Brando, barely out of acting school, takes the stage in a borrowed suit, his hair slicked back but his nerves a mess. Instead of the raw charisma that would later electrify audiences, he mumbles lines, fidgets, and can't seem to find the camera. The legendary Selznick sat in silence, aghast, as Brando's southern charm landed with a thud. The myth goes that the screen test was so painfully awkward, Selznick not only rejected Brando on the spot, but ordered the reel buried so deep it would never resurface. Decades later, collectors still chase rumors: a misplaced canister in the Selznick archives, a decaying nitrate print in some estate sale. Imagine if the footage ever came out. Overnight, the Brando legend, Hollywood's eternal rebel, the natural, the method actor who could do no wrong, would look very different. We'd see a young actor fumbling, self-doubting, and lost in a part he was never meant to play. But maybe that's the point. Hollywood is built on alchemy, turning mistakes into mythology. If the world saw Brando fail before he soared, it would expose just how fragile every overnight success really is. And maybe, just maybe, it would make every other struggling artist breathe a little easier. Elizabeth Taylor's Hotel Meltdowns reel. Elizabeth Taylor, violet eyes, diamonds, a voice that could melt glass, and a temper that could shatter it. During the infamous shoot for The Comedians in Haiti, 1967, the legend goes that a French documentary crew captured more than just behind-the-scenes footage. With cameras rolling and tempers flaring, they allegedly caught Taylor at her breaking point, flinging objects at hotel staff, berating co-stars, and threatening to walk off the film. The tape, quickly hushed up by nervous producers, is one of Hollywood's most sought-after missing reels. Taylor was at the height of her fame, her every move, tabloid gold. But behind the glamour, she was caught in a spiral, exhausted by press, exhausted by work, and fighting constant rumors about her marriage to Richard Burton. The crew's cameras caught it all, reportedly filming hours of candid chaos. Taylor screaming at assistants, sobbing in frustration, and storming out of meetings. Word is, after one particularly brutal argument, Taylor's team paid a small fortune to seize the raw footage, sending most of it straight to the incinerator. But rumors persist that a duplicate survives, locked away in a Parisian archive or the private collection of a now-dead producer. If this footage ever emerged, it would rewrite Taylor's carefully managed legacy. Instead of the world's most glamorous survivor, we'd see the cost of living under a microscope, a woman pushed to the edge by her own legend. Would the public still adore her, or would the myth come crashing down? Either way, the missing Hotel Meltdowns reel remains a holy grail for Hollywood historians, and a chilling reminder that some moments were never meant to be seen. Rock Hudson's private life home movies. On screen, Rock Hudson was the dreamboat every studio wanted and every audience adored, a man's man, a heartthrob, and Hollywood's eternal bachelor. But in the quiet backyards of Malibu and Palm Springs, far from the red carpets and spotlights, Hudson lived a very different life. Legend has it that during the late 1950s, a trusted friend brought an 8mm camera to one of Hudson's private beach parties, capturing the star, relaxed and unguarded, surrounded by friends and living on his own terms. These home movies, never intended for public view, allegedly show Hudson at his most authentic, laughing, dancing, unfiltered, and with companions the world was never supposed to see. The rumor mill says that, at some point, A copy was stolen or misplaced, vanishing into Hollywood's labyrinth of collectors and blackmailers. Studio bosses were desperate to keep Hudson's public image spotless. His on-screen romances with Doris Day and Elizabeth Taylor were big business, and the world simply wasn't ready to see the man behind the mask. For decades, the Reel's existence was denied, but stories from insiders grew. A mysterious tape changing hands at late-night industry parties, a hush-hush warning to never let it out. If this footage ever emerged, it would force a new conversation about Hudson's life, the hypocrisy of Hollywood's double standards, and the loneliness that haunted his stardom. Would it ruin his legend, or finally reveal a human being audiences were never allowed to know? Either way, the missing home movies have become the stuff of legend, a reminder that some secrets were locked away for a reason, and that the real story of Hollywood is always messier and more moving than the movies themselves. Errol Flynn's Lost New Guinea expedition footage. Errol Flynn, the ultimate swashbuckler, Hollywood's wildest rogue, and the guy who never met a risk he didn't want to wrestle. But the most dangerous adventure of his career might have happened far from any studio backlot. In 1942, during World War II, Flynn tagged along on a newsreel cruise journey to New Guinea, hoping to document the front lines and maybe burnish his image as a real-life hero. The footage, according to insiders, was supposed to be patriotic gold. Instead, what came back was a disaster. Word on the lot was that Flynn, expected to play the dashing correspondent, instead spent much of his time feuding with the crew, partying with locals, and blowing off every bit of military protocol. The camera rolled through it all. Flynn stumbling through jungle undergrowth, picking fights with guides, and, in one infamous sequence, bailing on an important supply drop to chase a rumor of hidden treasure. When the studio got its hands on the rushes, panic set in. This was not the fearless icon they were selling to the public. This was a cautionary tale. According to production lore, studio execs shelved the reels and swore everyone involved to secrecy. Some say the footage was destroyed. Others hint that a copy survived, tucked away by a vengeful cameraman with an eye for history. If the world ever saw those reels, the legend of Flynn, brave, charming, untouchable, would take a serious beating. Instead of a hero, we'd see a star way out of his depth, struggling with the jungle and himself. Sometimes, what gets left on the cutting room floor is all that's holding a myth together. Judy Garland's on-set outtakes from Annie Get Your Gun. Judy Garland was Hollywood's miracle, a voice for the ages, eyes like hope itself, and a comeback queen if there ever was one. But the road to legend was lined with heartbreak, and nowhere is that more obvious than in the missing outtakes from Annie Get Your Gun. In 1949, MGM's cameras rolled as Garland stepped into Annie Oakley's boots, only to capture her falling apart, take after take. Studio heads expected a musical triumph. What they got instead was Garland, exhausted, anxious, sometimes barely able to stand, fighting her own body and the studio's relentless schedule. Crew members whispered about scenes where Garland would freeze mid-song, burst into tears, or beg the director for another chance. The official word was creative differences, but insiders knew the truth. The pressure was destroying her. Desperate to protect their investment and Garland's public image, MGM allegedly ordered the raw footage sealed away. Most of it was supposed to be destroyed, but rumors persist that a junior editor, stunned by what he'd seen, kept a copy in a private stash. For years, the existence of these reels has been Hollywood's open secret, a lost chapter in the Judy Garland story, hidden just out of reach. If these outtakes ever emerged, they'd demolish the myth of the effortless star and show the brutal toll of fame. Would fans see her as a victim of the system, or would it tarnish the magic of the Wizard of Oz forever? The real drama of Garland's life was never just on the screen. It was in the moments MGM tried hardest to erase. The confidential James Dean interview. James Dean's legend is built on cool, on the sneer, the swagger, and the eternal promise of a life cut short. But what if the real Dean was nothing like the rebel the studio sold? Tucked deep in the Warner Brothers vaults, Hollywood rumor says, sits a lost reel, a raw, unfiltered interview taped just a week before Dean's fatal crash. Not a studio puff piece, but a confessional, private session where Dean drops the mask and spills his fears about fame, the press, and the trap of stardom. According to an old studio publicist, a documentary filmmaker was granted rare access to Dean in his final days. The cameras rolled as Dean talked about loneliness, feeling lost, and questioning whether Hollywood was worth it. He confided that the pressure was killing his spirit, and that he sometimes wished he'd never been discovered. The interviewer left shaken, convinced the footage would change how the world saw Dean forever. When the studio saw the rushes, they panicked. This wasn't the icon they wanted to immortalize. Orders came down to destroy the film, but archivists have whispered for decades that a single print was quietly boxed up and forgotten. Some collectors believe it's out there still, waiting to be rediscovered. If the reel ever saw daylight, it would rewrite the cult of James Dean overnight. No longer just the reckless heartthrob, but a haunted young man, tired of being everyone else's fantasy. It's the kind of footage that could break the legend, or finally show the truth behind the leather jacket. Sometimes, the most dangerous thing you can show is who someone really was. So, what if these missing reels suddenly appeared? Would they destroy Hollywood legends or set them free from the fantasy machine? That's the beauty and the terror of lost film. The truth is always just one reel away. Which secret would you want to see exposed first? Drop your wildest theories in the comments, hit subscribe for more legendary deep dives, and share this with a friend who thinks they know old Hollywood. Because in this town, the real story is always hiding in the shadows.